is Rashee Rice, wide receiver, SMU, 6 foot and 1/2, 204 pounds, 9.5-inch hands. He ran the 40 in 4.51 seconds. He had a 1.49 10-yard split. Woo!
That's impressive.
That is very impressive. Broad jump of 128 inches, vertical of 41 inches last year. In 12 games, he had, I almost said 69, 96 receptions, 1,355 yards, and 10 touchdowns. My mind just sees what it wants to see. So.
And for that, he was dealing with a foot injury most of last year, too.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
So a couple different things here with Rice. So Rice is another one of those names that, was kind of circulating for a while. SMU's actually done a decent job at putting out some NFL receivers. This was like looking like the next guy. And especially he's one of those ones where if you just watch like some of the highlights, like, ooh, look at Rice, because you talk about somebody that can get up and get it looks like he's levitating at times.
41-inch vertical and actually plays to that.
It's my number one pro. I was like, man, this guy can make some highlight catches.
Yeah. He can absolutely make some beautiful looking catches. But the consistency for him is just not really there. And I was listening to the PFF Stock Exchange podcast with Trevor Sikkema, Connor Rogers. I think those guys do a really good job at looking at the game. And I thought they had a really good point on Rice. And because I watched the tape first and I didn't know quite how to articulate my feelings. And when they said this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly right. He was listed at SMU at 6'2", but he is actually 6 foot tall. When you watch him play, he attempts to, and often successfully, especially against lower competition, like a guy that's 6'2", 6'3", where he is going up and getting the ball, contested catch monster, like that kind of stuff. But when you look at what he's actually good at, you mentioned his 1.49 burst. His 40 time was actually pretty good, but he doesn't play that way. He doesn't play with speed. He plays like a big physical receiver instead of a guy that utilizes his speed. So it's almost like he needs to hit the reset button and become the player that his skill set suggests he could be, as opposed to just trying to be this box out, post up, jump ball guy, because the NFL's going away from that overall. Like, they're not favoring those types of players as much as they used to. I'm not saying that you lose your contested catch ability. Obviously, that's a great tool to have in the toolkit, but we need him to utilize some of this explosiveness that the testing numbers are telling us that he has.
I'll tell you what. I mean, my very first, in my conclusion, the very first sentence, it says he flashes potential, and he's just really inconsistent. So I do get that point. I don't know how to explain the speed stuff, right? Because I agree with you. My very next line in there is like, sometimes he looks great, he looks explosive. Other times he looks lethargic off the line. It's he's a tough one to nail down. Why is he doing the things that he's doing?
Right.
Basically, he 1,355 yards. He's produced. He's doing it. He is inconsistent. One time he'll be, making great catches on off balance throws, and then the next catch he's just dropping something you feel like it's a little bit difficult, but he made that other catch, and why the heck isn't he making this catch?
He drops some easy passes, which is crazy because how good of catches he can make, and like one-handed catches and one-arm catches. He does have some easy drops.
So he is just, there's another guy that has all these kind of tantalizing things about him, but is consistently inconsistent. And for me, that makes the evaluation process really difficult, because how do you nail that down? How do you figure out, hey, is he going to be able to clean this stuff up and turn himself into a legitimate down in and down out type of NFL guy? Or is he going to be this player and eventually just find his way to the bench? Because like you were saying earlier, if there's a guy that's going to be dropping passes or just doesn't maybe look like he's exploding off the line every single play, I have problems with that. Could you imagine being an NFL quarterback or a coach? Like, no way. That stuff's just not going to fly, man. So it's hard to tell what the heck is going on with some of these guys, why it's not happening on a consistent basis, down in and down out. we'll talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba in the next show, but that was one of the. I love him when it's not a play going to his side of the field. Yeah. I love him because he plays balls to the wall. Every single
all the time,
every single snap, no matter what he's being asked to do. He's playing that snap as hard as he can. And I can't say that about a lot of these guys that we're watching.
Yeah, I mean, Rice, he's a little bit older receiver. He turns 23 here, I think, next week, actually. And you do, like Garrett said, if you watch this highlight film, you're going to come away really impressed. I mean, you see things like there's even a play that didn't even count versus Houston where like he makes this really sweet one-handed catch in the end zone, brings it in with his arm.
Bobbled it, and then
he was just out of bounds. He caught it, but he was out of bounds, so it wouldn't have counted. But then the very next play, they go right back to him. The quarterback throws right to the defensive back. He jumps up and gets it. Real nice, little clean route. But, the inconsistency is there. He is very solid upside, Rice. Like, he's on my board. I wrote that my last thing is like, this is a player that's really solid upside. The drops aren't concerning. He has 22 career drops. He had 3 fumbles this past season as well. So on top of the 22 career drops, didn't get a lot of separation as well. That was kind of a concern for me. Like, his separation skills weren't really that good. I saw a stat from my guy, Rich Rebar, a ton of screens. He had a lot. He led this class in screens with 35. And he also led, and he had 40 targets of 20 yards or farther, which is also led this class.
And yards after catch, too.
And his yards after the catch, really good.
It helps when you get 153 targets in college.
It does. I mean, he's good with the ball in his hands. He has a really nice jump cut that I saw. I thought his lateral movement was good. I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who's 6'1", 204 pounds.
I thought he was only 6 foot. Did he come in at 6'1"?
I think he's 6'1.5". Okay,
yes,
so you guys are
so
split the difference. You guys,
we're right in between.
Yeah, both.
He was second in targets.
He needs to tighten up his routes a little bit. He needs to expand his route tree some. But I mean, overall, this is he falls in this kind of that. He for me is in that third tier of receivers, that third bubble for me. I just like his upside. He's interesting to me.
So my upside look on this guy is like, is he an Isaiah Hodgins or like a Gabe Davis? One of these guys that maybe is like a 4th or 5th round draft pick that could develop. I think he can develop and be a guy that's like kind of fantasy relevant if he takes all the right steps. If he doesn't, and he doesn't clean up some of his inconsistencies that you see, he's going to wash out of the league. And that's unfortunately how I see him.
And when you're in the third bubble of this class, for how deep of a, these bubbles are in this class, you're talking like 4th, 5th round draft pick of your rookie class. And we all know how those stories pan out.
They very rarely
one pick of draft.
They very rarely hit, but I mean, this is a guy. If he figures it out,
upside.
So here's the other thing, and I think this is why I struggle a little bit too, because with the way that he plays, because that contested catch stuff worked really well against lower competition, but when he played the better team, so TCU, Cincinnati, and Tulane, who was 21 at the time and was known to have a very good defense, he had 74 yards against TCU, 41 yards against Cincinnati, and 41 yards against Tulane. So he wasn't able to moss the teams with better defensive players. He was able to do that against worse defenses. So can he incorporate the speed that he has or not? And that's really the question.
It's a problem with these, not going to be able to get separation. You give opportunity for the defensive back to get their hands on the ball. So if you can't separate, then that's an issue.
If he gets the right kind of quarterback, throw the ball up in the air to him, just toss it up.
Yeah,
toss it up.
Got through 2 games of him, so I still got to go back and watch some more.
How about move on to the next guy who has
just for what it's worth,
upside.
67.45 is where I'm at with him right now, so not a great score.
Bueno.